The Great Barrier Reef is the largest living structure that was formed about 10 million years ago. It stretches 2,300 kilometers alongside the Queensland coast of Australia, and there are 2,900 individual reefs in the Great Barrier Reef. It is so large it can even be seen from space, making it clear why it is considered one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. The Great Barrier Reef has over 1,600 species of fish, 600 types of hard and soft corals, 215 species of birds, 133 different species of sharks or rays, 30 species of whales or dolphins, and 6 species of marine turtles living in this ecosystem. The reef sustains this diverse ecosystem mostly from the structure of the reef made up of billions of organisms called coral polyps. These polyps first settle onto the seabed and then secrete limestone. The polyp divides into an identical polyp and continues this cycle to create larger and larger skeleton structures of coral which form the framework of the reef. These coral polyps are consumed by many different species of marine fish. The coral structures in the reef provide shelter and habitat for fish to avoid predators. Coral has a very interdependent relationship with the photosynthetic alga called zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae lives in the tissues of coral, and using photosynthesis powered by sunlight, they produce and provide nutrients for the coral to use to grow. In exchange for those nutrients, coral provides shelter and protection for the zooxanthellae. There are quite a few threats to the continued survival and stability of the coral reef ecosystem. One of the largest threats to the health of the coral reef is carbon dioxide. The Great Barrier Reef is one of the most easily noticeable places where climate change has been having a detrimental impact due to carbon dioxide. With the continued burning of fossil fuels all over the world, high levels of carbon dioxide have accumulated in our atmosphere and in our oceans. These high levels of carbon dioxide have led to increased temperatures in our waters. Coral is very sensitive to temperature changes. Increased temperature in the ocean leads to bleaching events. Bleaching events are when water becomes too warm and causes the coral to expel the zooxanthellae in their tissues. This causes the coral to lose their color and turn completely white. This does not immediately kill the coral, however, they are left more vulnerable to mortality as they will slowly starve with the lack of zooxanthellae to provide nutrients. The bleaching of coral can lead to the death of coral and further loss of life of other species living in that part of the coral reef, with the loss of a food source and shelter that the coral provides. Bleaching events have been occurring more and more frequently as carbon dioxide emissions continue to rise. Carbon dioxide emissions are considered a chronic non-point source, which means carbon dioxide emissions from anywhere in the world are just as likely to negatively impact the coral reef as local carbon dioxide emissions close to the reef. There is hope for the bleached coral though. The coral structure is still intact, and a coral is able to recover if the temperature conditions do not continue to stress the coral with extensive or highly repeating bleaching events. If the bleaching events are minor, surviving coral can repopulate and rebuild upon the bleached parts of the structure. Lots of research has been conducted to see how the destruction of the coral reef can be stopped and eventually reversed. There is ongoing research by David Suggett, whose team took fragments of coral that survived bleaching and grew them on mesh platforms near the reef for a few months. These fragments were then transplanted and attached to the reef matrix. Another group has been seeding damaged parts of the Great Barrier Reef with over 1 million lab-raised coral larvae. These methods are meant to and have been used to help the reef recover and prosper after significant bleaching events. The Great Barrier Reef itself has been slowly migrating farther south from the equator to cooler waters that the coral can more easily survive in. There are many ways ordinary people at home can help, mostly by lowering their contribution to carbon emissions. This can include using public transport, biking, eating less red meat, recycling, and switching to green energy sources. It is up to all of us to help prevent the loss of the Great Barrier Reef, a beautiful and diverse ecosystem worth saving.